war are the next war, the war after that, and the war after that, the militarism after that, and the growth of irrational forces like ISIL, not a million miles away from the amount of arms that we have exported to countries in that region, which are now fueling those appalling conflicts. So we've got to think very carefully about the human consequences of war. Those 500,000 people that are now refugees in Libya, those that Billy quite rightly talked about on the stage between his songs, who are dying in the Mediterranean trying to get to a place of safety, those Afghan people that have been denied entry to Australia and told to go to a refugee camp in Papua New Guinea to be processed, whatever that means. There is a refugee crisis all around the world. It's the biggest refugee crisis there has ever been in recorded history. There are more people living in destitution than at any time in our history. We can't, shouldn't, and will not solve the problem by rhetoric against migrants, putting up frontiers all over the place. You have to look at the causes of the problem. You have to address the economic issues and imbalances that go with it. None of this is simple, but surely we are socialists, we are humanitarian, and we want to see something very different in our society. So let me give you a few specifics about what we're trying to do at this very moment. First of all, in 2016 there's going to be a vote in Parliament on replacing the Trident nuclear missile system, and it's going to cost £100 billion to replace it. Well, I won't be voting for that. I'll be absolutely voting against the replacement of Trident. And the reason is because I want to live in a world of peace, not of war. And I was at the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty Review Conference in New York in the beginning of May. And also last year I was at the Humanitarian Effects of War Conference in Vienna, where very smart people explained exactly what the environmental effects were of one nuclear explosion anywhere. The Foreign Minister of the Marshall Islands saw an explosion as a child and has never forgotten it, and he's dedicated his life to ridding the world of nuclear weapons. And if there was an explosion anywhere in the world, the environmental catastrophe, the economic catastrophe, the food catastrophe, never mind anything else that would happen, would be absolutely catastrophic for all of us. So why are we proposing to spend all this money on another generation of weapons of mass destruction? The speeches made by Britain and the United States and other nuclear powers at the conference were claiming they needed these weapons for their own security. And then they were followed by Abdul Minty on behalf of South Africa. Some here will remember Abdul Minty campaigning against apartheid in exile. Some will remember Abdul Minty for all the bravery he did. And you know what he said? South Africa wants to be secure and at peace. We achieve security and peace by not threatening our neighbours and not threatening the world. Yeah. And so that's one issue. The other question, and I'll conclude with this, facing the Labour Party, is quite simply this. We lost in 2010 on the back of a banking crisis created by unregulated banks, a subprime mortgage crisis in the United States, and this led to a global tsunami of economic problems all around the world. It was not caused by the alleged overspending of the Labour government. It was not caused by there being too many nurses and paramedics in the health service, cleaners in schools, educational assistants, or any other public worker. It was not caused by them. It was caused by a banking system that was out of control. And what we did initially was right, to bring the banks into public ownership. It was absolutely right. The problem was the shares were then given over to a holding company, and that holding company is now, under the directions of George Osborne, selling them off at a loss. Yeah. So who's going to make the money out of all this? I think you know the answer. Spivs in the city and fat cats all around the world are buying up those banks. Surely, since we paid so dearly as the public for those banks, we should retain the public ownership of those banks so we can direct them to invest in manufacturing industry and everything else. But sadly, in that election, we adopted an austerity budget. The budget would have been that an incoming Labour government would have made cuts. We have spent the last 5 years witnessing the condemns and the cuts and austerity they have made. We've witnessed a growing inequality within our society. We've seen the privatisation and selling off of services, the internal market in the NHS, the hollowing out of the NHS as a series of profit centres rather than care centres. We've seen all of that. And when we came to the election of 2010, some of the stuff we were proposing was good. End of zero-hours contracts, rights at work, more housing. There was some good stuff in it. But the fundamental problem was that even if a Labour government had been elected, there was still going to be cuts, particularly in local government expenditure. There was still going to be an adult social care crisis. There was still going to be a wage freeze in the public sector. You can't cut your way to prosperity. You only get a change if you challenge the austerity agenda. Because the reality of this austerity agenda is about rebranding our economy, is about greater inequality, is about reducing the size of the state in what it does for ordinary people and how it operates for ordinary people. That is what austerity is really about. And so after the election defeat, lots of us had lots of discussions and became very frustrated at the limited nature of the debate the Labour Party was holding. So in the absence of a one-year policy debate, which I think the party should have been having now, instead there was a leadership contest, so we decided we should challenge in that contest to ensure there is this discussion, there is this debate, and our party can at least have the chance to support those people that want something different to austerity, that want something different to nuclear weapons, that want something different to saying the only way forward for the Labour Party is to appeal more and more to the right. I was appalled in the election at some of the results we achieved. Good comrades like Chris Williamson in Derby that lost his seat and others. I was shocked that people voted for UKIP, knowing full well that UKIP wasn't going to build a house, a hospital, a school or anything else. But they did it out of desperation. They did it out of utter cynicism towards the other parties who weren't offering anything that they thought was going to do them, their friends, their family or anything any good. So surely as a party we can be bigger and stronger and better than that. We can mobilise people, unite people, excite people. We can encourage those 53% of young people who didn't vote, who were registered in the election, to turn out. We can win people back. But we don't do it by apologising for what we are. We don't do it by treating the trade unions as a kind of rather embarrassing uncle that turns up every other Christmas and you wish they'd go. You do it by being proud of what we are, proud of where we come from, proud of our unions. And so this is a fascinating process. I make no predictions about what's going to happen, but I do know that the mobilisation of such large numbers of people in every town and city in this country talking about something different, wanting something different, demanding something different, has changed politics. And let's let it continue. Because I want to live in a society where young people don't leave university with massive debts, where young people have their skills recognised, where every family gets somewhere decent to live, where we don't fund the exploitative private rented sector by a housing benefit system that is simply off the rails, that we have a health service that is publicly owned, publicly run and publicly staffed. And we challenge what the Tories are doing. Their budget, what's their budget about? £30 billion worth of sales of public assets this year. Double what Margaret Thatcher achieved in the worst year of her premiership. Big cut in corporation tax. Big cut in welfare. Big cut in the grants that were available for youngsters from poorer households to go to university. It's an anti-youth, anti-people, anti-working class budget. And within a day, it's accompanied by yet another piece of trade union legislation designed to shackle unions, breaching even ILO conventions. Surely to God, we can stand up, as the brave people did in this very village in 1834, for trade unions and workers' rights. Stand together for them. And so, let's be proud of what we are. proud of the ideas that we have, a society where everybody matters and everybody's valued, a world that doesn't lead to its own destruction through pollution, overconsumption, destruction of the ecosystem and the natural habitats, which is proceeding apace. We can't solve every problem everywhere, every day, but we have to understand what the fundamental principles are under which we approach things. We approach things from the principle that everybody matters, that the natural world matters, that peace matters and is so important. And our movement, yes, it's political, yes, it's trade union, yes, it's economic, yes, it's full of ideas, but it's also intensely cultural. I remember an utterly bizarre debate in the 1970s with somebody from one of our great national museums asking me why I wanted trade union banners in the museum because they were works of art. I said, well, you've obviously never been to the Durham Miners' Gala or Tolpuddle or ever seen a union banner to see the brilliance in the work of art that is there in every working class community. Let's remember where we come from, our cultural roots, our cultural heritage, our cultural expression. And remember also that poverty is such a waste. Waste of people's lives, waste of all our lives, and waste of opportunities for so many people. Lift our sights up, lift our spirits up, lift our hopes up for a decent, better world. That is what our forebearers fought for. That is what we proudly campaigned for. And whatever happens, we're a force, we're a presence, we're a future, we're a hope, we're an inspiration to the next generation. Thank you very much for inviting me today.
All the way from the London hustings today to Tolpuddle to speak to you all, but I know how important it was for him to do that. On behalf of his campaign, they've asked me to announce that there are t-shirts and leaflets available if you want to collect them from, I think, just kind of over there somewhere. You know where that red screen is? You know where the store's been moved, so please go and collect them from there. But so once again, the leaflets here show you how to text support to the campaign. If you text support to 78555. We haven't got time for other speakers, mate, sorry. But can I just say once again, thank you so much, Jeremy.